Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone. It's Roy and Val, and I had water in my mouth. I was just drinking right before we went live. So sorry, we're, as always, a couple minutes later than we normally are. But
not too bad.
You know, here at the Lansing Creativity Center in Michigan, we're a little busy. It always seems like everyone shows up right before we got to go live. So, but here we are, and we appreciate you guys. We asked for questions, and we got some questions.
We got some.
So we are going to try to go over.
We don't know the answers to them, but we got some.
We can know some answers.
We have some opinions.
That's right. But for those of you that are, if you're watching live and you have a question, you can write, Kaylee. They can
Absolutely.
you can certainly ask us another question, or if you have a question about the question that we're answering, you can certainly ask that too.
Yes.
So
that's good. Ask a question about the question. That would work.
That would work.
Okay, but we didn't really discuss
the order of events. We think we're going to leave number one for last, I thought.
Okay, we'll do what you want.
Let's just jump into the enamel pen one. Do you want to do that? How can I, number two?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just looking for where it was. Okay, yeah, okay. How can I make my enamel pens paints apply solidly and evenly? No matter what I do, they go on and come out streaky or globby, especially the white.
Yeah, so that, it's a good question. I get the same sort of one, especially dealing with enamels. And so first, I guess we should probably talk just briefly about, we sell a few different products here at Delphi. And
let me get these.
Yeah, you can grab the glass line paints if you like. And I grabbed one, Milton Bridge. I didn't grab one of the other ones that we get, the color line ones. I didn't grab one of those. But another product we sell. So one of the things,
but that would be similar to the Milton Bridge.
They're very similar, very similar to Milton Bridge. So just real quickly, what I brought out here are the glass line and then the Milton Bridge ones, and they are not the same product. I know sometimes people use the term paint or enamel to describe stuff, but the glass line is actually a glaze. So it's manufactured by a company that makes glazes for the ceramic industry. It is what they call a low fire glaze, like really low fire glaze.
Yep, I think but I do think they say almost 1,500.
They say 1,500, yeah. So if you're not familiar with working with this, the reason why they suggest 1,500 is it's shinier, right?
It gets shinier.
Yeah. So if you're doing,
it works at 1450
or
1480 or whatever people fuse at, but it gets shinier.
As low as I could get, it was around 1350, and it was and it would still stick, but it's real matte finish, at that point. So I guess it just real chalky is a good way of putting it. But it just depends, I guess, on what you're looking for. But so there's that kind of paint. But they act very similar. So the other kind of paint I'm showing over here is an enamel. And so enamel is crushed up glass and pigment. This one is in a medium, so it's already in a liquid, right? A lot of times you can buy enamels in a powder form, which Delphi also sells that, right? So then you'd have to mix it yourself.
Now, too, sometimes people want to know, are they coefficient specific?
Oh, that's a great question.
So...
Good one. They are not, right? So the glass line and the enamels are not coefficient specific. Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So. Well, because sometimes people think that is because it's crushed glass instead of the glaze situation, but it can go either way. Yeah, for the most part, we've had, of course, here at Delphi, we test everything that we sell, so and we haven't had any issues with any of these. So the manufacturer of these products, the way they kind of put it is that it's such a thin layer that you're putting on top of the surface of the glass that the COE isn't really a factor. Yeah, it's not enough. The only thing you have to be careful with enamels is that they do make enamels that are specific for metals. And in those, sometimes they work on glass, sometimes they don't work on glass. So you just, it would be a test kind of thing. But I can tell you, again, these Milton Bridge ones that we're carrying are designed for glass, and you shouldn't have any problems with them. One of the things that Val and I were talking about before we got live was that both of these products you can thin down with water. In fact, what happens to them is just sitting around inside the container, they'll dry up, so it's not unusual. In fact, you can see, if you look close on this one already, these little kind of cracks that are kind of in there, right? This is one that was sitting on our shelf, I'm assuming, right? Mm-hmm. And then, for the most part, it's probably wet enough, and you can just do this, right, and just, mix it up. If not, then just add a tiny bit of water and shake it again. We have to
reconstitute them on a regular basis if you're using them. So again, so somebody was talking about it being lumpy. It's possible that that particular white enamel that they were using was
because just to be clear, we didn't really get exactly what type of painting they were doing or what kind of product they were using. So we do have with these glass line paints, we do have these little caps that go on that have their tips, I guess, and they have little tiny openings. So they make it come. This has just, if you can see it, it's just kind of you cut the top, and it's just would be kind of a thick.
I'm going to squirt some out here in a second.
Oh, okay. So you can see it. Like. So we sell, just so you know, we sell these bottles. Sometimes that's a nice way to apply them if you need to try to do more fine, detailed stuff. And you're going to show how you also can use them with a paintbrush.
Yeah, so that's what we were wondering too. I know sometimes people, again, when we hear the term paint, we all think of, I've worked with acrylic paint or those kind of stuff, and how you apply it with a brush. Enamels and these glass line paints, they're not applied exactly the same as traditional paint is, and so you do have to treat them a little differently. The term we use, especially with enameling, is you want to flood the paint or puddle the paint. And I'm going to show you sort of what that means here just in a second. But so I just grabbed a piece of glass. This is the glass line, one of the glass line colors, right? Coming in a wide variety of colors. And as Val was pointing out, this is just the tip that comes with it. So when you squeeze it, this is what you get, right? So you always get this big glob when you first start out, squeezing, and then if you're real careful, you can get it to kind of get a little bit thinner as you kind of work with it, right? I did check the consistency of this one beforehand, and it was pretty good, so I didn't really have to add any water to it. Sometimes they're a little too wet, and then I'll just leave the cap off for a little while and let some of that evaporate, and then tighten it back up. And then, as Val pointed out, you can use these little metal tips to get really fine lines, which I could show you how that's done, but maybe we don't. Wait and see. And but if I'm painting, right? So let me grab a paintbrush real quick. So if I'm painting with this, you can see that when I get some paint, and what I like to do is just get some paint on the brush. So what I'm doing, it's subtle, but I'm rolling it, right? I'm kind of rolling the paintbrush into the glass line paint so that I get it all over the brush. But even then, see what happens, right? When you try to paint with it with a brush, it doesn't really. It
just thins it out.
Yeah, it thins it out, which is kind of a nice painterly sort of look, but that might not be what you want, right? So again, how we usually approach these is, if you're trying to make this look like it's even color and full, it's more of dabbing. So again, the term is that they use in the enameling world is called puddling. Do you see how I'm patting and moving instead of dragging the brush? And so in comparison, right here, I filled in that area, but this area I left kind of open. So same deal, right? So if you see this paint that I have here, I can scoop it up by, again, rotating the brush around and picking that paint up, and then coming here and then setting it down, and then again puddling it or flooding it. I was talking to Daisy about it earlier, and she said it's like some kind of cookie decorating technique, right? Where you have to flood the, right? Is that?
You outline it first and then flood, and then it holds the outline, holds the.
That just made me hungry for cookies, but.
Oh boy, I'm sure someone's going to give you a Christmas cookie somewhere.
Dang, that would be nice. But that's really sort of, so it's a technique thing, right? To me, I think it's two things. One is getting the right consistency to the enamel or the paint, whatever you're using. And again, the nice thing about these products is you can just use water to adjust that. Then the second is a technique and how you want to apply it, right? Again, if you try to paint with it, it's going to really just get thinned out, and you'll see brush strokes, and it will look uneven. So this kind of, again, puddling technique is really the approach to that.
Okay, before you guys go on, we did get a question.
Hey, great.
They want to know, how do you know what glass is food safe? She uses 96 COE.
Well, who wants to tackle this one?
I would always, I always go back to the manufacturer to be certain. And I'm not sure.
Gosh, man. Are you talking about just glass, right? I mean, just like not paint and everything, but just glass.
But just any kind of the manufactured glass.
Yeah, so, well, I can tell you what a lot of people recommend is you should always put clear. If you know someone's going to eat off it, you should put clear on the top of it. If you look at some of the manufacturers will let you know, they use a lot of metal oxides, for color and for viscosity when they're manufacturing the glass. And there are a few, maybe I know of one glass company anyways, that will tell you exactly what's in the glass. So they'll tell you if there's lead in it, for example, which would be most people's concerns, I think. But, to be honest, I'm going to give you just one man's opinion. It's my opinion, not Delphi's or maybe not even Val's opinion. I've done some research on this, and I don't know if there's any scientific data that says that any of the metals leach out of the glass, right? I mean, the odds. I couldn't find it when I was looking, right?
I would agree with that.
The molecules are they're oxides, meaning they have oxygen atoms attached to them, and then plus they're also attached to whatever the rest of the matrix of the glass. Whatever the silica. I don't think licking a piece of glass is you're going to get any lead.
Well, no, but the other thing about food and our kind of glass that we produce or slump or whatever is that it scratches. So it would never be something you'd want to put a steak on and cut it with a knife, and I'm not sure. I think if you were just putting cookies on it or maybe just laying fruit on it, I don't tend to worry about that at all.
What about cheese and crackers?
I don't know. I don't think I would worry about that.
Well, I can tell you I wouldn't personally.
No, I don't think I've ever done it, to be honest with you. But I don't really have anything in my house that I made. But
I made the crudité board, and we for sure put food on that.
Oh, we put food on that. That's right. Well, actually, we have a plate at home that when my kids were younger, that I made a Santa face that they put Santa, for when Santa came to put cookies on.
Yeah, so, that's just it. I would use it for little display and serving pieces, and I don't know. Someone will say, they made soup bowls and stuff. Well, I don't know if you're going to put your soup in it and eat it right away. I don't see a problem in that either. But those are kind of some decisions. I mean, you can either. We're not going to tell you. We don't know for sure what's what.
That's sort of my point. I don't know if anybody knows for sure. So
if you want to be 100% safe,
we've all heard the rumors. Yeah, that'd be the best answer. But
and you probably could reach out to the manufacturers and ask them if they have a list of.
You could, and
they won't
answer.
They're
going to say the exact same thing. They're going to just say cover it with clear, but. Just to be safe, right? So nobody wants to be accountable.
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's nice that, people are aware because...
You should be.
You should be aware, but like I said, it's just not something that I feel is that critical.
I would agree.
Yeah, but you make your own decisions. I mean, if that's a worry, then, do some more research.
I can tell you, though, that the enamels and the paints that we're talking about, they don't contain any lead whatsoever. Not these, anyways. They took it out of the industry for glazes and for enamels. I don't know how many years ago it was. Probably many years ago. Mm-hmm. So, anyways. But thanks for the question. And
it's a good. Like I say, it's good.
Good.
Okay, so have we covered? What are we?
I thought that was pretty good, right?
Good.
I don't know if the person that asked that question.
Yeah, like
is
I
here,
say, we were kind of not quite 100% sure what kind of products they were using, but and if we didn't answer it. Let us know.
Yeah, reach out to us a little bit more specifically.
We'll revisit it if we have to.
You can email us at Facebook@delphiglass.com, or you can message us on Instagram or on Facebook.
Or go to our YouTube channel.
Or you can go to our YouTube channel and leave a comment.
Is true.
That's right. So many ways of reaching us, or you can just call Val.
Go ahead. Okay, so do you want to skip around or you want to go in order?
Yeah, let's just go in order. What
What is the best way to apply jump rings to lead cane so that I know it's a solid attachment?
Yeah, well, that was a good one,
That is a good one, too, yeah.
Because, again, part of it is, we didn't know, what kind of, what shape you're doing. Is it like a little sun catcher, that's hanging in the window? Is it a panel? So I just grabbed some lead panels we had laying around. And only one of them has lead around the outside, which is this big one.
Let me pick it up? Or no?
Yeah, let's pick it up. And then...
Let's pick it up. Here we go.
So, you can address it if you want to jump in. Whatever.
No, I'm
good. Okay.
I'm good. I'm
so the key with lead is, the biggest key is where you place the jump ring, right? So you'll notice that these are handy hangers, by the way. But you'll notice that this handy hanger is in with this seam. So you can solder, and then when you solder to the lead, you're soldering here. Same thing with that one up there. If the handy hangers were here or here, it will eventually it'll just pull the lead right away. So that whether it's a handy hanger or it's a jump ring, you want to find a seam where there is a soldered. This one happens to be copper foil, but that's why I grabbed this one, because this is all lead. Now the outside edge is zinc, so I mean that's usually our recommendation. Obviously, is using zinc because it's so much stiffer, and you can just solder to the here. But if I was hanging this, I would put, and if this was lead out here and not zinc, then they should go here, right on the side. Not on the top. One reason why on the top is when you hang something, this is supporting all that weight coming straight down. When you can go to the side, it distributes the weight better, less likely to just pull straight off. But I would put them here where this lead line is at, because again, that's where the strength's going to be.
And would you then make like little legs on your rings so that you could countersink them? So you know what I mean?
That's the best.
That's the best, is to try to actually get a portion of the ring. So if you make your ring, twist it, and then have legs on it, then those are what you can kind of go back into the seam and embed, and then go ahead and tack it all the way out.
And then it's even stronger.
Yeah, it's stronger. And it does balance the weight even more.
So in a sense, you're really attaching everything to some kind of lead line and not the actual lead on the outside, right? So what I know, sometimes what people do is take a piece of wire like this, right? So shape it like a U, but then have it come this way. Mm-hmm. So then the wire is attaching here and to the back of that, and then so when it hangs off again, it's not really hanging off the lead that would be here, but into the seam. So
the rings up here too, I don't know if you're aware, but when the way this is framed, they're kind of countersunk.
Yeah.
Because they're
let's show you the bottom, right?
So that's the way the top looked, and then that is a really good way to do it, because then you do have this area to countersink and kind of get really
and then when you
solder, and it's really pretty sturdy that way.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is, and I think that's why the question, you don't really, it's not going to be a very trustworthy solder if you put your ring right here and just solder to the smooth surface of the, it could be good, but it also could be what we call kind of a cold seal type situation that just pops off. So you kind of do want to make sure, if you have to do it out on the cane itself, you would kind of really want to make sure you get that definitely hot enough that it melts into the metal.
Yeah, the tricky thing about lead is just that, so you're supposed to stretch it, before you use it, right, which stiffens it up. But even then, I mean, over time, it's going to keep stretching, right? I mean, that's the problem. That's why you can't just go to this open. I mean, right now, again, if you look at this one, I mean, the lead's pretty tight around the outside, but we're not hanging from it. Look at old church windows, and you can see them starting to bow because of the weight of the glass, and the lead is just starting to go, over time. So it's really, again, into a seam is the best one. And I wish we had an example of something that was a little more irregular shaped, right? Like some kind of sun catcher kind of thing, because then it would be the same deal. You'd have to find, again, where there's more than one lead line coming and meeting, and try to solder into that joint, if that makes sense. So. Is that?
Yep. And then what did you bring this one for? Was that you?
No, I brought this one because, well, I asked Daisy to find me some things, and then so she said, well, we recommend you just put wood around it, right? So that's what that's about.
And then that makes it easy
yeah,
to
that's
screw
even better,
in these
right?
things.
Then
but it is
a little more durable, because the wood then is supporting the weight, right? And not, you're not relying on the frame of the metal frame, whether it's zinc or lead, to support the weight, but the wood is
good.
So that was all right.
Is that good?
Good.
Yeah. No more questions about that?
Well, we must
but
have.
they said you were correct. The vendors did not answer, so there we are.
Oh, so somebody asked?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for that person, again, just real quick, I can tell you, for me, again, I'm one of these people that I research things to death, that's just the way my brain works. And so this was years ago when some of the glass manufacturers were running into issues with when the government stepped in and said, hey, you're using all these metal oxides like chromium and whatever, and you got to stop. So that's when they did some research, but I started to do some on my own, and I found there's a university, Alfred University, I think they're in New York. They're a glass place. I mean, they do a lot of glass stuff. And there I read an article from somebody there that said that there wasn't any data that showed any of those metals leaching from the glass. And so that's where I get my information from. It sounded pretty good. It was an academic source. So anyways,
good.
Do what you want.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah, what else?
All right, this one is, at what temperature in the kiln does sifted crystal clear 90 powder become clear and shiny? This would be sifted on top of a full fuse flat piece that was turned over to shelf side up. Thank you. She was very nice.
She said thank you.
Yeah.
That was nice. Thank you. We appreciate the question. Yeah, you and I talked about this briefly. Like, I was telling Val that I use clear powders a lot, like for
Divot.
Yeah, for divot. Like if you have a divot situation, you can sprinkle on some clear powder. Maybe you had a glass that, like the steel blue that struck steel, and you want it to stay blue. You can put clear back on top of it. You can sift some on there. Maybe you just want a more even-looking look to the entire piece, right?
Or maybe you want to make sure it's food safe.
Oh, there you go. Whoever asked that question, right? So that you could do, sift powders
you could
on
do
there.
that.
You bet.
And it would also keep the weight down and the extra, the extra mass.
Yeah.
That you...
So I know that one of the manufacturers recommends that when you're putting clear on top and capping, that you put 2 grains thickness of the powder, which is like impossible, right? I mean, how are you going to, no one can measure that.
You would probably do that.
Yeah,
One grain at a time, and then go back over the second layer.
If I could find a delicate enough pair of tweezers, I might do that. But so there you just sift it, so it looks like it'll look kind of whitish, right? If you're not familiar with clear powders, right? They look white. And then you would try to sift that along with the whole surface. I don't use any kind of medium. I know sometimes people will use clear fire or something as a liquid on top and then sift because it sticks. But I've never really. I thought it was totally unnecessary.
I
right?
just
was that?
sifted. Yeah.
But so also, let's say I guess in this situation, they thought the back was dull, so they want to flip it over and then sift it on, right? So. Yeah, well, you could do that, but then the other side.
Yeah, I was just going to say, then the other side's not going to be shiny.
I've actually done that before. So, like, let's say I was doing something really, really geometric, and sometimes the top surface moves a little, but the bottom won't. And then, so when you flip it over, you get these really crisp lines. But you're right, it's not as shiny because it's resting on the shelf, either the kiln wash or the fiber paper. So,
the answer
is what's the temperature?
You got to get to a temperature that glass melts.
Yeah.
So we say, I mean, and there's a range.
It's a
probably.
range.
You've said you've done it as cool as 13.
Yeah, probably 1380. I know I have.
Right.
Easily.
I would say just to be one and done, I'd probably go at least 14.
Yeah, that's what I usually go 14 because depending on what you've done fused wise, right? I mean, 1400 shouldn't really change the shape of the glass a lot, right? But I mean, if you've done a tack fuse and now you're trying to do it, then obviously 1400 would be too hot.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, like we were talking. So again, there's not a specific temperature, right? It's not just like a temperature. Some of it depends on, we've had this discussion before about everybody's kiln acts a little differently, right? So, you know what, 1380 for me might not be 1380 for Val's kiln. She might have to go to 1390 or whatever.
Right.
But so pick one, try it out.
Keep notes.
Yeah, keep notes.
I mean,
so you know it. If you've got a controller that you can, plug it in. I actually wrote it in on the other one about, I can't remember what I call it, probably, because I'm always fixing devitrification, and so it's probably just called a divot fuse or something for me. But anyways, yeah, that should do it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, let us know if you're doing it. Let us know how it works. We'd be happy to hear that.
Right. Okay, so, the cold working one.
Oh, cold working.
Ooh, we didn't grab. Oh, you did.
I grabbed some stuff.
You good. Okay, good job.
What are you talking
about? Okay, cold working manually without grinder, saw, etc. I think,
I think it's just they want the process.
That's what you wrote. Okay. Yeah, just how to cold work, basically, right? Without the electric tools.
Yeah, I guess it depends. So we grabbed a few things, right? So these are, I'll tell you, these are really nice. If you're not familiar with these pads, diamond pads.
Did you get two of them?
Did I grab two? That's what I'm wondering. Did I grab two of the same? No, they're different. They
look close, don't they?
They look real close. So this is the most aggressive one. So if you're not familiar with the numbers refer to, it's like sandpaper, right? How the lower the number, the bigger the particles, right? So the 70 is a lot more aggressive than this 400, right? So I know you can't really tell from here because the dots aren't really the size of the coating. That's just how they applied it. Like these two look like they're the same, but this one is definitely, you can't feel it, but this one is definitely rougher than this one, right? That's a 70, that's 120. And so, I mean, you can literally just take your glass and just grind on it, right? I'm not going to do it, but you could get the idea.
Just use that one.
This piece of glass?
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Just a corner.
Right? I mean, you could just come in and just, this is going to be fun.
Do you think are you supposed to use water?
Well, I use water, I do them wet all the time, and they're only, well, for two reasons. One is it makes the diamond coating last longer by, keeping them wet. The other is it doesn't scratch the glass as much if it's wet. I mean, around here, we literally just have like a little, plastic Tupperware like type dish. It's filled with water, and we just rest these on there. They'll float, but then you just pick them up, and then the surface is wet, and you just come in, and every now and then we dip them in the water and use them again. I've done them under running water. If I was trying to get really aggressive with something and I knew I was going to be there for a little while, I'll just under a sink and have the water running and then just kind of grind on it. But and you can do it for a surface too, so it doesn't have to just be like edges and corners and trying to get sharp things off. I mean, if you, again, let's say this devitrified and you were going to grind off that and then fire polish it, I mean, you can come in and just grind the surface. I mean, that's what's nice about them being so flat. The other nice thing about them is this little... I probably shouldn't just talk about this, but this little coating here, this thing here is a film, and you can peel it right off. And I've done that before, and now it's flexible. So it's curved, and so if you're trying to do something that has got a little bit of a curve in it, it's really kind of nice because you can kind of get it to go around something, or you can bend it so it's like a V shape, and you can go into something that's got like a tight, inside corner. They're nice. So yeah. I guess you got to buy 2 sets of them then. That's what it sounds like. Right?
Yeah, but
trying to sell stuff here.
But then you work down the grit size. So you start with the
sorry.
most abrasive.
Yep. Yeah, it just really depends on what you're trying to do, right? So if you're not familiar, this 120 is like, if you have a grinder at home, that's what your grinder is. When you buy a grinder and they have a standard bit on it, it's 100 or 120 grit. So if you're familiar with that, that's what this one is. So 70 is going to be a lot more aggressive. And then moving on up, it goes to 220, and then this one's 220, and then 400. The 400 is like, I mean, it's really, really quite fine. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously, the finer it is, the less material it's going to remove. So if you need to do a lot of grinding, so a lot of times people will do is get real aggressive with some of these, and then to make it just look smoother and nicer, then they'll move into the ones with a higher grit on them.
But they will scratch.
They do scratch. Yeah, they'll make the glass dull, right? I mean, they're going to
there will probably be like a fire polish to get it back to shiny, if that's what you were after. So, I mean, anytime you cold work, you're going to have some scratches. You can't do it without that. So
not by hand.
Yeah. So, because sometimes people think they can use those, just to fix something. They don't realize that the scratches are going to stay there, even if they reduce whatever it was they were going to do. The scratches will be there till you heal that surface back up again, and it's going to be a fire polish.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it on the surface. How did it not show? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you can see.
Can you see it? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, and that was like 2 seconds. So you can see how that's... And that obviously doesn't go away, right? So it's, it looks like that.
You're not going to remove inches with this,
though. No, but you can definitely get like little flares or little, bumps. Like say you hand cut a circle and you needed to make that edge look a little cleaner. You can certainly do that by hand. I mean, I've done it. It's not
around some corners. You can round the corners if you want to.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah. You will never get a polish, right? I mean, by hand you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to need some mechanical, something that moves at a little faster speed to get something to polish. We also have grits like this. Let me show you this box. I'm not going to pull all of it out and do whatever, but what's inside here, we sell these 1 pound containers of silicon carbide, and it's closed so you can't really see it, but you can see the powder. What did I grab? I grabbed like
120, 220.
Oh, I did? Wow. It doesn't look that aggressive to me. I thought it looked finer than that. So yeah, so a lot of times with the silicon carbide, it's like a range of numbers. Like this one is 120 to 220, only because the manufacturing process, there's slightly different sized particles in there, and so they're just letting you know that. But this is not even the most aggressive one. I think we sell one that's what they call a 6090. So again, a little more coarse. What these are for is, and I've actually used these plenty of times. So let's say I had a second piece of glass that I wanted to grind. So you take a piece of clear glass, and it can be window glass, doesn't have to be anything fancy, and then you mix this with some water, and you make kind of a slurry, and then you put that on here, and then you can take your piece and literally grind through it. I mean, I've done it with, like, for the fused people, like when you do the lip of a bowl, I got a big piece of glass, and I mixed some water on this, threw that on there, and literally just ground it by hand. And it's doable. It's time consuming, It's actually kind of, Zen. You really get into this kind of. So what you do is, like with something like that, is you have to do like a figure 8 is the recommendation. Because if you just go back and forth or up and down, then it's possible that it's going to be a little uneven because you're pushing harder with one hand than the other. But if you're always kind of doing a figure 8, you're not always applying the same pressure, and you rotate it every now and then. The other little tip I'll give you with this is when you add water to it, add just like 1 drop of dish soap. That kind of breaks up the surface tension, so the stuff just flows a little easier. Sometimes with just water, especially the real fine ones, it'll just clump, a little bit. So I just use Dawn because that one works pretty well, I thought. But and you can just do that by hand, which trust me, I've done a few that were. And it takes like hours, but it's fun.
Okay.
A lot for nothing. So that was good.
Good. That was good.
What else we got?
This one. I want to make shaped glass on glass mosaics, like a heart or a circle. So she did, and they don't want to use a picture frame. So they say they want to make a glass on glass mosaics that's in the shape of a heart, and then so they want to know how to hang it or what's the best way to frame it. So, how do I use it? Is there a better solution? Oh, what is hobby cane?
Yeah, they were asking about hobby cane.
Yeah, what is it, and is there a better solution?
Yeah, so we grabbed some canes. So if you're not familiar with the technique of glass on glass, so the surface or the substrate's glass, right? So they have a glass shape like a heart, and then they glue glass onto that, and then maybe grout it or don't grout it. But then the question is, how do you hang that, right? I mean, because that would be tricky. I guess you could drill holes in it. I just thought of that right this moment. But they're asking specifically about hobby cane. And so I thought we would talk about that just real quick. So this is hobby cane. If you're not familiar with it, it's a really thin, it's like 5/64 of an inch, I think, is what they refer to the face. The face is this part here, right? What's here? The channel is pretty standard for the most part. So the glass would sit in there, right? And you would wrap this around, whatever your piece is. Now, this kind of goes to the question we answered earlier, right, about lead cane in general, trying to use that around a piece. It's just not strong enough, right? I mean, you could solder a ring to this, obviously, but it will pull off over time. I mean, you'll pull the lead off, and the ring won't come off, but you'll just pull the lead away.
And then in the glass-on-glass mosaic situation, there is no seam. There's no solder.
Exactly.
There's no metal to solder to.
Yeah.
So,
and they get heavy, little mosaics. They really do, right? Because you got the base glass, you have an adhesive, then you have the other glass, and then if you grout it, I mean, you're adding even more weight. So you could see where. Yeah,
so it is a problem. So, but what did we talk about? Like,
Val came up with a great idea. I thought was something I hadn't even thought about.
Well, I mean, and circles and ovals and all that. That's kind of tricky to do. Well, it is going to pull away if we just try to solder a ring or something. So we were thinking maybe you could put a fine bead of silicone inside the channel and then wrap it around your piece. Let that cure and really get glued on, and then I think you could probably just solder a hook on or something.
We thought that. We haven't done it. We haven't tried it. I grabbed a couple other, since they asked specifically again about the hobby cane, I grabbed a couple other canes that are a little bit bigger. So these are U-shaped, just like the hobby cane, but the face is wider, right?
So I'm just going to put that little face next.
Yeah, so you can kind of see the difference. This is an 1/8 inch. This is 3/16. This one here. So. And we just think these are a little bit bigger. Part of that is, again, if you look at this 3/16 one, the channel is deeper because the face is bigger, so you have more contact, with the glass. And again, I think you could easily put a little seam of clear silicone in there, and then wrap that around your piece. And as Val said, if you wait, and the recommendation is 24 hours, for that silicone to dry. But then. I don't see why you couldn't solder to that.
It should be pretty strong, I would think.
That'd be pretty
now,
strong.
if it's a giant piece, I mean,
that's
it's
what we
all kind of relevant.
Yeah.
As to what
Scale has a lot
right?
to do with it, right? How big is the piece, right? So,
so if it was real big and heavy, you might want to try to do some sort of wire basket, or you know what I mean, some kind of thing that it can sit in. To hang it if it's really big and heavy.
Yeah, we talked about maybe epoxying, metal, onto the back or something. You use an epoxy to attach some kind of metal hanging.
Yeah.
We were thinking bales, but again, it really just depends on the size of the piece, right? I mean,
and like you just said, drill the holes. I mean, that would work too. Drilling the holes probably, and then putting some kind of hook with chain or something. If it's heavier, I don't know. It's not always the best look. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's probably the other part too. That's why I was thinking about when I was thinking about gluing some, or using an epoxy to glue some metal hanger to the back. Then you're probably going to see that, right? So I get why you might want to try to find something that's going to frame around it because it would be less obtrusive for sure.
But I think it's, these are great questions, because
we love the questions.
they're not always sometimes things we've done, but we like that.
It makes us think about
thinking about what, because surely there's some way we could figure out how to do something. So I think there's ways, maybe a couple of those might help. I don't know, but.
Yeah, and let us know if
or if you come up with something better, let us know because
if you want to just reach out to us, we're happy to.
Right.
Ponder
okay.
Further.
So
what else we got?
I think we're back to the top.
Oh, so we're back to the first question, which we left for last. So.
We left it.
Yeah, we thought this one might be a little involved, so we.
Well.
Or not.
I think it depends on who's talking. Okay, but it could be. I think it's kind of straightforward, but okay.
Okay, let's do your straightforward approach.
I do know how to read, but when I printed this, Keely, I couldn't get it any bigger. Now I can't hardly see it.
I thought you might copy and paste it into Word.
I tried, and it didn't.
So she just.
Now and I will have a computer lesson.
So
later.
this
is a screen printer.
I know my computer's different than yours. You guys, I couldn't get it to do it. It wouldn't work. Anyhow, but I can see it. But I'm not really. It's not like I'm struggling because I don't know the words. Okay, so
I'd have to borrow your glasses to see it.
Right? I know. Well, you're kind of old now, too. I would love to know how fiber kiln schedules differ from other kiln schedules. My understanding is you can ramp up and down a lot faster in fiber, but you can't find specific schedules or how that impacts the glass. I inherited a Bonnie Glow, and the program only has 4 segments, not 6 or 8. It's very confusing to me. There are several things in there. I'm just saying the whole overall kiln situation is, maybe the Bonnie Glow.
First,
okay, the Bonnie Glow, first of all, is not a fire brick kiln; it's a fiber kiln, right? So
it's fiber.
It's lighter weight. I mean, there's some advantages to it. You use them all the time in Vegas. I don't. We had one here for a while, but I don't.
And what we had was the Bonnie Glow.
Yeah, and so, but. The one thing I think that's a bit confusing to people is that they do sort of advertise that it goes fast and it cools fast and oh my gosh, that's great, and so you can do so much more. But like you and I talked, the one thing you have to keep in mind is just because the kiln is able to do that doesn't mean your glass is going to be able to withstand it. So you're still going to do just like you would in a normal firing situation with a normal fire brick kiln. You got to take care of your glass. So if this kiln will ramp 800 degrees an hour and you have a 12-inch 2-layer piece in there, it doesn't matter that the kiln can do it because I can guarantee you the glass ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
So, so what I'm saying. So if there's confusion there, just because it can go fast and it can cool fast, that's irrelevant if your piece of glass is so big that, so that's kind of, I think, just the basic part that I think of. But then you go. There's other things in there.
But there's other things, yeah. But, I mean, that's probably the main thing is that just because, as Val said, just because it can do it doesn't mean that you should do it, right? So it's always based on scale. I have used these kilns probably a little bit more than I think than Val has, as she mentioned. I teach out at the Glass Craft and Bead Expo in Vegas, every spring, and a lot of times I have these fiber kilns. And I'll tell you one thing I do like about them is I can go faster. And they do cool off faster, and but mainly I try to pick projects that I know I can do that with, right? So I can go a little bit faster,
and
So
that you can
exactly,
get away
thickness
with.
and dimension, right, matter. If you're doing a bunch of jewelry stuff, I mean, you could go as fast as a kiln can possibly go, right? So
and that would be an advantage then to have that kiln if that's what you were doing. You could just ramp them up and bang them down, and that would be really great. But
so if you own one, again, look at the project you're trying to do, and then use the firing schedule that fits your project, right? Don't worry about what the kiln can do, right? I mean, so you have a fiber kiln, you have a brick kiln. It's the project that's going to determine the firing schedule,
segments.
Yeah, and so then segments, right? So I know. So then the person's asking these questions. So Val and I have done this for a while, right? I mean, we've been fusing for a long time. And I was telling her earlier, right, that when we first started, like every firing schedule was 8 segments. And then, we've been doing it long enough.
We admittedly didn't know what we were doing.
Oh gosh, we didn't know what we were doing when we started. And then but Val and I both, we questioned stuff, and we're like, well, why does it need to be eight segments, right? What if I made it 6, or what if I made it 4? And, so her and I will believe this a lot. I know our firing schedules are very, very similar. I don't fire anything at 8 segments. I don't know anything I've ever done that's been 8.
No,
not
I've
anymore
never
anyways,
done that.
8 segments. And 6 is even, man, that's
unusual.
That's
It's very
pushing it
unusual.
for me too, right? We normally don't. So the fact that you have a kiln that can only do 4 segments, I mean, that's probably going to do 99% of the stuff you have to do. I can't imagine. The only situation that I said something to Val about, and it really is, it's more situational than anything else, was, and I only know this because this was actually happened to a customer of ours. So we're in Michigan, and it can get a little cold during the winters, and they had their kiln in an unheated pole barn, so away from their house, didn't have a separate heat source. And I hear about this sometimes too. People think, oh, the kiln will just heat it up, but it doesn't work that way. The kiln is only going to heat inside the kiln, and then so they fired something at night, and then the kiln cooled off too quickly on the way down, and the piece cracked, right? Thermal shot, because it was one of those times it was like negative, like 10 degrees outside or
Extreme.
something. It was extreme, right? So not just 30 degrees or 20 degrees. It was below 0, I remember, and the piece cracked. And but also same deal. It was decent size. It was 10 inches or something. So having a multiple schedule or segment schedule would help on the way cooling down. But for Val and I, most of the time, at the end of the annealing cycle, we just let the kiln shut off and cool off on its own. I mean, we don't have a segment that stops. Not very often.
Not very often.
Do we have a segment that stops
We
below
did it
that,
on my sinks, on the
We do
big
it on
big
something really
sinks,
big
really
and thick.
big.
We
We'll
definitely
step it
do,
down one
yeah.
more time. But
Right.
even then, that's
Yeah,
only
yeah.
one more time, so that would have just
That's
been
not
5.
like 8 times, right?
Yeah, no, that
yeah,
would
and
be
so
5.
we're a little different too. So when we ramp up, we stop a couple times, I think, before we get to our target temperature. Right? Val and I both stop around 1,000 or 1,100 to mainly just equalize the temperature out. So I know we come across firing schedules where someone stops at 250 or 300 or 500 on the way up, and we have no idea why.
Yeah. I mean, just recently I saw a
why.
firing schedule that had actually 3 stops before they got to 1,100, and I don't really understand that. I mean,
I don't know.
But we honestly, this is what we got to say, because this is actually 100% true, is that, there are people out there that probably believe that's a firing schedule that they can bank on, and if they do, that's great. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
It works for them, right?
We say
So
that
how
in our
totally
classes.
works,
I
yeah.
say that in my 3-day fusing class all the time. I would never poo-poo someone's firing schedule if they got the result they wanted. That if they got the result they wanted, you and I will look at some things and we might make adjustments just because, there's no reason to stop in a couple of places, in our opinion. And so when you do all that, your firing schedule becomes a very long firing schedule that is using power, you know. So we also sort of feel like whenever, we can eliminate a couple of those things and just would ultimately shorten the firing schedule, which would shorten the amount of energy we're using and the time it's, I mean, that's kind of how we do it. But in no means are we saying anybody else's 8-segment firing schedule is wrong. It's not wrong. It's just not how we do it. We just kind of...
Yeah, or we're not, we're certainly not saying ours are better, right? We're just saying this is what works for us. And again, part of it was, I mean, we've had time, right, to test these things. I mean, Val and I have been fusing probably about 30 years, right? Somewhere around there, both of us have. So I know when I'm firing something, the word that pops in my brain every time is how efficient can I make my firing schedule, right? So again, as Val pointed out, right, I want a certain result. I want it to look a certain way, and I have to be able to get there. But I don't need to spend 24 hours, right? The kiln running 24 hours to get the look that I want.
Yeah, some of those are extreme I've seen, but So, but that's the Bonnie Glow thing. So what we're saying is
any fiber kiln, right?
Right, and we're just saying that we wouldn't get too hung up on the fact you only have 4 segments, because I'm thinking that's not going to be. And, you know, we're pretty out there with firing schedules, so,
We are.
you know, you can get with us, and if you know, we have copies of them if you want us to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Val and I are both more than willing if you reach out to us. I mean, if you have a question about a firing schedule, I mean, we'll give you our opinion, right? It's, again, just an opinion, but we'd be more than happy to do that, so.
But, and then also just don't, I guess it's important, just don't get hung up on the fact it can go fast and cool fast and all that, because that's great when it fits the project, but if it doesn't fit the project, then you're not going to be using it. You shouldn't be using that up and down quick, so.
The other thing I tell people all the time is there's, you know, no firing schedule is etched in stone, right? Like, so again, whether you got it from the manufacturer, you got it off a Facebook group, or you got it from your friend or your instructor or the place down the street that fires your stuff for you, I mean, that just because that's what they do doesn't necessarily mean it's like perfect, right? Or it works. It really, a lot of it's just your opinion about what you want your piece to look like and how you have to get there. And so sometimes it does involve a little bit of experimenting. I mean, I think we both have done things before where we're like, we'll look at somebody's schedule and look at that it's like 7 segments, and we'll say, well, why do we need this one? So we'll try it. We'll take that out and try it. And if we get the result we want, then great, right? We've saved ourselves some time and energy, and we're still getting the results we want. I mean, again, we're not, compromising the glass any. Well, would you agree,
No,
right? I mean, we're
not,
not doing
no.
anything that might affect annealing cycles or the risk of thermal shock, right? We don't want to crack pieces. We don't want things to crack later on down the road. So, again, we take all that into account.
Awesome.
Okay,
So-
That was our
Wow.
questions.
that was
Wow,
our
was
list,
it.
and
So-
thank you so much
man,
for those.
We really appreciate that.
We would've
All
looked
of you that
stupid
did
just
that.
sitting here looking
So
at
we
each
would've,
other.
like, we'd have to come up with some
I know.
some stupider stuff than we normally do. But thanks for joining us today. And I'm sure, we like to do this type of thing every now and then, right? We like to do these open up for questions. So if you got questions or if you have ideas or topics for other Facebook Lives you would like us to do, right, reach out to us. We're, always looking for ideas. And really, the videos are for you guys, right? I mean, and so we just want to make sure we can get information that you find helpful out there. So,
Awesome.
so thanks for joining us.
So,
See you after the first
Yeah,
of the
we'll
year.
see you
Happy
next
holidays.
year, everybody.
Yep.
Have a nice holidays.
thanks for joining us.
Thanks. We'll see you.